Many people are podcasting for the sake of building their own audience and building their own, so to speak, expert status in their niche. On this episode of Podcastification, I'm going to tell you an idea I've had based on a few podcasts that I've listened to that might help you accelerate that process. My name is Kerry Green, and I am the Client Happiness Guy at PodcastFastTrack.com, and this is Podcastification. This show is all about podcasting. How to do it, how not to do it, best practices, interesting news items that have to do with the realm of podcasting, and who knows what else. And I'm trying to do it all with a little bit of fun and some information to help you get a show going, keep yours going, or make it better. And if you like what's going on here on the show, I would appreciate it, oh so appreciate it, if you could leave a rating or review on iTunes. You can find out how to do that at podcastfasttrack.com/review. That's enough of that kind of stuff. Let's get you podcastificated right away. So it's important for all of us as podcasters to know our true motives for why we're podcasting. You know, for some people, it's just a hobby that they like to talk about, as far as their topic is concerned. For others, there's a deeper motive. There are desires from a business perspective to either monetize that podcast directly or to use the podcast to position themselves as a resource, as a trusted expert in their area of specialty, whether that's real estate or financial planning or business coaching or whatever. It doesn't matter. That motive is the same. And a lot of the way that people get into podcasting these days is by doing interviews with people in their niche. And I have nothing against interviews. As you can see on this particular show, I do my share of interviews. But I'm kind of selective about the interviews because
I'm an extremely picky eater, and so these are different funny situations that I have dealt with my entire life.
I want people who I think are truly going to add value to my audience and have a specialization in their knowledge that I particularly may not have. But I also want to make sure that I am being highlighted. And that may sound self-serving and utilitarian and selfish and all that sort of stuff. And hey, maybe it is, but I don't think it is in a bad way.
You've ever heard, right?
Because I'm running a business here, right? Podcast Fast Track is only going to be tenable and survive as I have clients who can support it and who I can support. And so I've got to have some sort of legitimacy behind what I do. You understand what I'm saying? The same thing is true for you. So in this episode, I want to highlight an idea I've had and that I've actually recommended to a few clients who have rocked it when they've applied this proposal to what they're doing. So here we go. Let's talk about how you can become more of an expert in your niche through the way you go about publishing your podcast episodes. Okay, the idea is pretty simple. I got this idea, I think the first time, from listening to a podcast called Super Fast Business. There's a guy from down under named James Schramko. If you haven't listened to James's podcast, Super Fast Business, I would suggest you look it up and kind of scroll back through the episodes to see exactly what it is I'm talking about here. But what it is that James often has guests on his show, and they'll talk about specialty items like SEO for your website, or marketing tips, or email opt-in sequences and things like that. But James also will do these shorter, kind of quick tip kind of episodes to walk you through some areas of specialty that he happens to know about. And he includes these two different types of episodes, if you want to think of them that way, in the very same podcast feed. And I've heard people kind of push back on the idea, saying, yeah, but you're going to be kind of schizophrenic in the way that you're approaching your subject matter and your your following isn't going to necessarily like that. Well, I grant it. That may be the case in some cases. But what I've seen happens is it provides two different types of resources to your audience. But because they are centered around the same niche and the same focus overall, they don't actually rebel against that and say that they dislike it. They actually enjoy it, especially because some of the episodes are shorter in nature in terms of the time frame, and they're easier to consume quickly while you're on the go. And here's the thing that I think it does for you, at least it did for me as I listened to James do this on his own show. It causes your audience to begin to see you for the value that you, as a specialist in your niche or industry, can bring to them and the business that they're running. So what's the results that could happen from that? Well, they may begin to consult with you, become a consulting client if you do consulting and that sort of thing. They may come to your website and check out things like books and online courses and services that your team offers. They may actually reach out to you and say, hey, could you help me with X, Y, or Z that has to do with your niche when you don't even have a program for that kind of thing? I've heard of that happening with some of my clients. And you know what? That's a great opportunity. When you have someone in your niche who is expressing to you their need, and they've already self-selected you to be the one they want to help them with that, man, my advice is to come up with a program really quick or work something out along the side with them, alongside them. Because you know if one person is coming to you asking for it, there are others out there who have that very same need. And if you can put together something that meets the need of a real consumer who is expressing to you the exact things they would like to see in that product or service, man, you've probably got a winning thing just waiting to happen. Now, I want to highlight one of my clients who I think has knocked it out of the park on this, even though he hasn't actually done it for very long. And that's a guy named Odell McCants. Odell is a former sports agent. He's working a full-time gig right now while he's got his podcast going on the side, but his desire is to help people in the sporting industry, whether they are professional or college, to understand the business side of what it is they do. Things like building a resume, like contract negotiations, like dealing with the administrative piece of everything they have to do with juggling a staff and support people and all of that kind of stuff. That's Odell's strong point. And he's had a lot of interviews with people who have made it in the sporting realm. And so he's talked to them about, their career path and the things they found helpful and all that. And Odell does a great job of asking good questions. But as he was getting kind of bogged down in the scheduling part with his guests, he found that it wasn't always coming together in the time frame he was wanting it to happen. And so I encouraged him to draw on his own expertise, his own experience in dealing with high-level coaches and administrative personnel and those kinds of things as he coached them in his agent practice, and to give these little shorter advice-based sort of things. And he's done a great job at it. The first episode he did along that line where he was giving tips about building your resume as a coach or as a professional in the sporting industry, man, I thought was incredible. He provided all kinds of resources that I never would have thought of about how to craft that resume, how to put it together, how to make things happen for yourself by putting together the right kind of material that answer the questions that the people on the other side of that resume are going to be asking about you and your experience. And Odell is just one example of that kind of thing that I think almost every person who's podcasting could take advantage of and could put out there for their audience to consume that would truly be of value and truly be of practical help, actionable items that you could give, that your audience could do, could see the benefit in their own life, and therefore they look at you, the one who gave them that advice, as a trusted source for that kind of information. So when they get in a bind when it comes to figuring out that sort of stuff, who are they going to think about? You. Who are they going to come to when they have a need in that area that they're not quite sure how to handle? You. I think it's a no-brainer to do this, but I don't see a lot of podcasters doing this. I do see some. Granted, this isn't an original idea with me, but it is an idea that I think more podcasters need to take on. It's going to differentiate you from other people. It's going to make your podcast unique as far as your brand and your actual approach, because that's part of why people are listening to you, because it's you and not someone else. They like your approach. They like your perspective. They might even like your sense of humor and the way that you look at situations, because it resonates with how they look at situations. And so that's just kind of off the top of my head thoughts about this issue of building your own brand as an expert in your niche.
Hello? And that's all I have to say about that.
And I feel the same way, Forrest. Thank you very much. You know, Podcastification is here to help you. I want to see podcasters produce better content, more actionable content, more valuable content that truly makes a difference in the lives of your listeners. I'm always available to give advice, so I ask you to give me some feedback. Is this the kind of advice that's helpful to you? Or if there's topics regarding podcasting and making it better that you'd like to hear about, please let me know. You can always reach out to me. And this is all free of charge stuff. I'd love to interact with you. You can reach me through email is usually the best way. Carey, C-A-R-E-Y, at podcastfasttrack.com. So go out and make it a podcastificating day. This show is brought to you by Podcast Fast Track, where my team provides professional podcasting services without the time suck. Full production, editing, and show notes, all in one monthly subscription package. You can find out more at podcastfasttrack.com. Now go out and make it a podcastificating day. Audio editing and show notes by podcastfasttrack.com. Get 15% off your first month by mentioning this show.